FITC is pleased to introduce James White. James is a visual artist and designer from Halifax, Nova Scotia. In this presentation titled Back to the Future Part 2, he will expand on last year's session to discuss selling your personal artwork online while sharing some of his personal adventures. Please welcome James White.
Thank you very much, everybody. Signalnoise to me kind of represents, this is my website and my company that I run in Halifax, and my home office, very small, one-man crew. But this is basically my own corner of the internet that houses all of my stuff. Getting hung up here. So I registered in 1999, a long-ass time ago. It just celebrated its 12th birthday. Just weird to me. But registered, and here's a version of the very first website that I designed. I designed this a day after I registered the domain name. Lots of Photoshop stuff, trying to experimenting with rollovers and things. And I look back at this stuff, and it's funny to me, but I can see exactly where I was in terms of progression, experimenting with Photoshop, learning those layers and overlays and all that stuff. And the preceding 10 years, I designed a lot of websites for myself. Here's a whole bunch. And I look back at these and I can see what I was into at the time, what I thought was cool, and in terms of internet trends too, like what was hip at the time that these were being made. So a lot of stuff, I was really looking for a place to house my artwork on the internet, my own little corner of it. And to do that, I had to develop a logo, and here's a whole bunch of Signalnoise logos that I designed throughout the years until I eventually landed on the Rainbow Sun. Thank God I didn't go with the headshot one, right? That's me, like the Bono thing. God, I don't know what that one didn't last too long. So again, while I was developing my website, I was trying to develop content for this thing too. So I was drawing the entire time. I would always grab my sketchbook, go to my favorite watering hole or whatever, and just sit there for a couple hours and draw. And I would explore all the ideas that I wanted to do, like comic book stuff, portraiture, anything that I really wanted to get into. Exploring different things, portraits of Marilyn Monroe and giant robots, anything, all of these things. And once again, this is that blind enthusiasm that I had as a kid, making art because I wanted to make art. And this is during my time at agency work. I'd work 9 to 5 and then go home and work on my own projects. And I'm going to outline some of those personal projects. Here's a bunch more: Superman, Bowie, just doing whatever I thought was cool. So at the same time that I was drawing, I always had other projects on the go, and here's one of them. This is a series called the Coiled, and it's essentially my first really big foray, whatever that word is, into doing Photoshop and overlays and trying to piece things together like found artwork. All of these are like royalty-free photos that I found online that I kind of pieced together in Photoshop, really trying to learn my tools. This was like early to mid-2000s or something, just trying to see how things worked. At the same time, I was really into Illustrator at the same time. I did all of these things, drawing, Photoshop, and Illustrator, pretty parallel with everything. And these are some monster posters that I developed back in I think the mid-2000s or whatever. And this is heavily influenced by Shepard Fairey, Obey, still one of my favorite designers. And the funny thing about this, I mocked these up in Photoshop before I actually did all the vector work in Illustrator. So, and this one here, the King Kong one, makes me laugh every time because the body is actually the rubber suit from the 1940s movie. I found a screen capture of it and I mocked it up. And the head is actually Photoshopped on, and it's a gorilla yawning. So it looks like he just woke up and everybody's attacking him. That's how that came about. And I decided at one point that I wanted to really meld my drawings with Photoshop. And this is the very first time I ever actually charged into some writing too. This is called a children's book that I wrote called Jacob and the Vanishing Door. It never got published, but I did a lot of work on it. Developed all the character designs and scanned them all in, did all the Photoshop work, overlays, everything like that. Just trying to push my art into one thing, having the natural extension of all the drawing that I did as a kid kind of melding with this Photoshop experimentation that I was doing in my actual career. So that's a bunch of that. That was really fun to do. I wanted to do a comic book too. If you ever tried to draw a comic book, it's a hell of a lot of work, holy smoke. And I only got 9 pages in, and I was sick of drawing the character that I created. So this is the cover for it, Fausto, and this is based on a painting by Edward Hopper, the cover there. And one of the pages that I thought was the most interesting. Giant robots and fire, man. I just wanted to do stuff again that got me enthused when I was a kid. I just love this childish stuff. At this point, I wanted to do toys. And I was like, well, what can I do with toys? I can't get into producing my own vinyl toys or whatever. So what I decided was I would make, who would I want to make toys of? Me and my friends. So that's me and my friends. That's actually me in the top row, second in. That's me up there. And this is basically all my friends back from Halifax. And what I did is I developed these in Illustrator, printed them off on cardstock, and then I cut them out by hand. And then I fashioned little stands for them so they'd actually stand up. And, and then what I did was I developed the thing on the side over there, the green thing, is actually I would cut them out and I would put them in Ziploc baggies and then staple them to a backing board so they actually looked like action figures in a package. And I called them the Adequate Lads because I think we're pretty adequate guys. For real, I did this. Then I decided I wanted to get into Flash animation, so I decided to develop these little critters. I called them the Planet. That was basically what it is. It was a giant orange planet, and I developed a bunch of bad guys that would basically hunt down these cute little robot rodents and stuff. And it was kind of a Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner sort of thing. Super fun. And then I realized I started animating it in Flash and went, holy crap, this is so hard. I don't know how people do it. So anyway, this here. But the Planet designs, the little black and white dudes right here, were actually the springboard for these vinyl toys that I wanted to produce called the Orbinauts. So these are actually an extension on the designs. I developed the chest logos, the overall logo, the packaging, and actually my buddy Jonathan Mitchell, who's a really good 3D guy, he actually took my flat designs and developed them into actual 3D renders. And I can remember the day he sent me that one at the top of all four of them with my artwork in the background and stuff, and I almost started crying because like I don't even care if these things exist now, man. Look, they look real to me. I had it as my desktop pattern for like a year. Basically what I showed you guys is a quick sum up of all of the projects that I've been working on my own time. Okay, I wanted to stress that. Like this isn't stuff that I worked on at an agency job or things that people were asking me to do because I was going to get paid. I did this stuff because I love doing it. And this is an extension, again, on the stuff that I did when I was a kid. Like I just did it for the love of creating it. And I do think that's a really powerful weapon that we have, just that raw kind of just love of creating artwork, making things cool, making things we like, you know? So what is inspiration? Let's talk about this. This is another little subsection of the talk. Now, according to Wikipedia, it's an unconscious burst of creativity in a literary, musical, or other artistic endeavor. And that's pretty good. That's not bad. It's a bit dry. But the only word I don't agree with is unconscious. I don't think inspiration is necessarily always unconscious, like it's always a bolt of lightning that comes out of nowhere. I think inspiration is something we can actually, it's a muscle. And the more we use our muscles, the stronger we get. And I think that's how I look at inspiration. It's something that we can actually use when we need it. And just looking at our lives, looking at our experiences, and drawing inspiration upon that. And things we thought were cool, we didn't understand why. That's inspiration to me, you know? And I wanted to tell a story. I went to the Louvre with my girlfriend a couple of years ago in Paris, and the Dying Slave is there, Michelangelo, which was awesome. I've only seen pictures of it, so you can walk right up to it, you can get this far away, and you can actually see like the etchings and where Michelangelo actually sanded down the sides of it and made it look how it is. And that was really, really inspirational to me. Like I wanted to tear to the Louvre and go and make things. Now I didn't want to tear to the Louvre and go make statues, because that's crazy and probably expensive. But I just wanted to create things. Like that's what inspiration is to me. So. Inspiration, to me, is any force that motivates one to do something creative. And it could come from anywhere, and it could mean anything. You could see something and go, wow, they put a lot of effort into that. I want to put a lot of effort into this other thing that I'm doing. You know, and that's what inspiration is to me. It's just motivation. Just raw motivation, man. And to me, nostalgia is like huge. Obviously, I'm up here talking about when I was a kid. That's basically the whole point of this thing. Like at that point in my life, back when I was a kid, you know, playing cars in my jammies on the living room floor, and it's that point in my life that is huge to me. This time, you know, and I'm still into that stuff that I was into back then. And the reason for that, I was thinking about it. It all comes down to imagination. You know, imagination is the most powerful thing that we can have as people. Imagination means we create things in our head that don't exist. That leads to innovation. You know, and this is the point in my life when it was just 100% imagination. You know, 80% of my day was running around in the backyard, you know, being a turkey playing G.I. Joes or whatever. And that's where I gained a lot of inspiration from that era of my life. So posters. Posters is kind of, it became my medium of choice over the years. I just love the shape, like for what it's worth, a rectangle. But I just wanted to create things that were in poster form. I love the blank canvas. I love exploring different ideas, and you can do anything with a blank canvas. I just love it. So I wanted to show you guys some of my favorite posters from some of my favorite designers. This is the Star Trek motion picture poster by Bob Peak, and I love it. And I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for this creative meeting. You know, Gene Roddenberry's there, and Bob Peak walks in, and he goes, "Hey, Bob, you got any ideas for that poster?" And he just goes, "Giant rainbow!" And then this emerges. And it's like, it doesn't really, for those who have seen the movie, it doesn't really represent the movie in a visual way. The visuals kind of look like this, but not really. But it's just, it gains interest. There's a lot of heart. It's the theme of the movie, which counts. It's not focused on the three characters. They're part of it, but it's more focused on the Enterprise, which is the theme. It's the symbol of Star Trek, and I just love that. Here's another one by Bob Peak, if you guys can see this, Rollerball. I love this poster, compositionally in particular. Like, don't get me wrong, I think it's badass, but I like it because it's just this spiked character with his fist up like that, looking really, really angry and intimidating, and it's offset by these almost slow motion figures down at the bottom with the ball gowns and the tuxedos, and it's just, and they're offset, they're off center, and I love it. It's such a contrast. It just breaks apart the poster in such an amazing way, and I want to see this movie. I got to see what this thing is about. That makes no sense to me. So brilliant. I love those posters. Let's move into Drew Struzan. Drew Struzan is I maintain he's the greatest painter of the 20th century. And Pablo, Picasso and Dali and all those guys, whatever. Struzan was the man. I just love it. And he created kind of his own genre of poster creation. All of his stuff is painted. There's no computers, which in itself is amazing. He's proficient as a painter, but he has this method of watering down kind of the symbolism or the themes of the movie, the characters, the heart. He simplifies it down into its base level, and then he creates a composition using his studies to create something that draws you in. He calls it the bullseye method, where you're drawn into a certain point in the poster. And it's brilliant what he does, and this is one of my favorites, Back to the Future. Now this one here is probably my favorite movie poster of all time, The Thing. The Thing, I love the movie too for what it's worth, but I love this not only because it's beautiful, but because of the story behind it. John Carpenter apparently called Drew Struzan the night before they needed this poster done. And they said, we need a poster, we need it for tomorrow morning. Now he paints all his posters, remember that. He said, we need it for tomorrow morning, we have this presentation we got to do, whatever. And luckily, it was a remake of a thing from the 1950s, and Drew Struzan had seen the movie. It takes place in the Arctic, there's an alien bouncing around from person to person, identity, paranoia, all this here stuff, and that was basically the theme of it. So he basically said, okay, I'll do it. Hung up the phone, got a bunch of pictures taken of him in a parka. And that's Drew Struzan there. And then he started painting, and the next morning, this is a poster that emerged. There was no time for change. There was no time for creative direction. There was no time for any of that stuff. It was just 100% raw instinct. And this is what he produced. And the reason I love that story so much is because if John Carpenter had called Drew Struzan a month earlier and said, hey, Drew, in a month we need this poster, would the poster have been necessarily better? Food for thought, huh? A couple of my other favorites, I just love it. Jaws, who wouldn't want to see that? It's such a scary-ass poster. The shark is so big, his teeth are so crazy, you can just swallow her up in one gulp. And E.T., I love that poster. I love it, and the reason I love it, it took me a couple of years to figure out why I love this poster so much, and it's because the bike is offset in the moon. The moon is perfectly centered, and they could have just plopped that bike right in the middle and been done with it, lined up with that's what I would have done. I would have just put it in the middle and it lines up with the logo. But they slightly offset it and then put the big tree on that side, and it creates this sense of wonder, movement, like the cape coming off the back of Elliot's jacket or whatever he was wearing, and it's just, it's beautiful. I just love that movie, that poster. It just represents the theme of the movie, the characters, And I think that's something that's kind of getting lost in the floating heads of today. So let's go into my work now. Now, I showed you guys a lot of inspiration stuff, and I showed you stuff that I did when I was a kid. So now I'm going to fast forward to kind of 3 years ago and show you guys some of my work and tell a couple of stories about how they came about and all that stuff. Again, all these are poster designs, and I want to stress again, these are personal posters. These are the things that I did on my own time. Okay, outside of agency work, outside of freelance and all that stuff. Something I did, Robot Rock, influenced by Daft Punk. La Femme is influenced, or it's a recreation of a poster from the 70s by a guy named Roman Seselitz. He's a Polish poster designer. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Solid Gold Bomb, influenced by Solid Gold Records and Motown back in the 70s. And I was really trying to push that 70s influence, the stuff that I saw on TV when I was a kid, brightly colored, lens flares, handcrafted, rough stuff, but still slick, for lack of a better word, in a certain way. I really enjoyed that stuff, and I was trying to recreate that based solely on memory and YouTube clips. I gotta find it, man. Network is the only sarcastic poster that I ever designed. Network, this is supposed to be TV's wonderful, yay, good-looking girls on the screen, rainbows and sparkles. And it's actually based on the movie from 1976, I think. And it's basically, that movie kind of references the evils of television and how, it can be used to keep people scared and manipulation and all that stuff. So I wanted to kind of make this here. It's TV's okay, man. My friends at Smashing Magazine commissioned me to do their second anniversary poster, and that was kind of a Channel 2 sort of an idea that I was going with. Again, network broadcast animations and things. My friends at PSD Tuts, or Toots, commissioned me to do their 2010 poster, and this was an interesting one. In the process, I'd done those swirly rainbow things like pretty early on, and I left a gap in the middle. And I wasn't sure what I was going to put there. It was going to be like a spaceship or something like that. So I started looking at the stock photo site that I used at the time, and down in the bottom, like you might like box, I typed in science fiction. It's like, if you like science fiction, you might like this girl with her skin painted black. And it confused me, but then I was like, huh, like maybe that's a thing. So I ended up using it, and it actually, like, being suggested photos by a stock photo thing actually changed the entire concept of the poster. Awesome. So basically the idea for this one was I wanted to create a poster that I myself would like when I was 7. So I was trying to, like, think back at just the primal core, dumb crap that I was into as a kid, and trying to water that down to its essence and create something based on that. And I've been saying the word awesome for, like, my entire life, so I figured that was going to be the title. Giant metal text, lightning, giant electric guitar. The only reason I want a time machine is so I can go back and give this poster to him. Go, here you go, buddy. That actually led to me getting a job with a hair metal band in Finland called Reckless Love. This was the poster they saw, and they actually hired me to develop their CD cover based on this poster. But so it was another kind of a thing where I'm actually creating things for musicians that are inspired by things that were developed back in the day when I was developing inspiration. It's weird. It's crazy. So here's a couple more. This is called L. I made this for my friends at ThinkStock. They gave me access to their entire, like, stock photo kind of website, and I could create whatever I wanted. And this one here I created. This is really childish. I created this out of retaliation, basically, the Green Lantern poster. The Green Lantern's coming out this year in theaters, and a bunch of people tweeted me when the official poster was released. And I was like, oh, cool, man. So I clicked on it, and of course it's Ryan Reynolds in the getup going like. I was like, come on, Hollywood. Like, Green Lantern is one of my favorite heroes, okay? Like, he was the one I liked a lot when I was a kid. And for what it's worth, I love his logo. His logo is completely simple and very sound when it comes to design. I loved it. And on the poster, it's like no character, no theme, no heart. It's just, hey, look who's in this movie, like we were talking about earlier. And I didn't like that. It kind of cut me a little bit deep. But and here's a little bit of a process. Basically, I made the poster in a day, and I used what I had at my disposal, which was my sketchbook. I sketched things out, and then I actually took photo references myself. Strange Adventures, my favorite comic shop, donated a power ring. It wasn't a real power ring. Don't get excited. But yeah, and I took all the photo references and stuff, mocked it all up, did a blue line trace, vectorized it, and then pieced everything together in Photoshop to actually create the poster. And that was done in a day. It was, like, created super fast. And the Tron posters, when Tron Legacy was coming out, they released the San Diego Comic Convention footage, and it was. I basically saw it and I flipped out. I was like, I want to work on that. Of course, I wasn't hired by Disney to do a poster, and I went, screw it, I'm going to make it anyway. So I made this, and this actually led to me getting quite a bit of work from clients. They would see this. It went all over the internet. It was actually being used mistakenly by Netflix for about, like, 3 months. Like, serious, for real. It was like in the upcoming movies, and they had it there. So I was, like, expecting, like, a Disney lawyer going, hey, you son of a. But so I released this one here, and then they released the movie, and they actually changed the style of the movie. So I redeveloped my poster to kind of use the colors and the style of the new movie. And then right before release, I decided to throw it all the way back to 1982 and create the 1982 version of Tron from the first movie, because I love it. And so yeah, that was the Tron poster kind of trilogy. It wasn't a goal at the beginning to create a trilogy. It just kind of happened that way as I was working. Again, on my own time, like after work, weekends, whatever. Here's a couple new ones. The Year Zero I did for my friends at OFFF that I'm going to in Barcelona in June. And the sword. I wanted to show the sword poster because this is another one of those examples of personal projects manifesting a reality when you find yourself in a position that you didn't expect. The guys from the sword, the guitar player, Brian, put on his Twitter one day, like, I had wanted to do a sword poster for quite a while. And this is because of one of my favorite metal bands. I'm a metalhead. And I really wanted to do it. So he put on Twitter, on the sword Twitter thing, like, we're looking for an artist, send us your portfolios. And I went, holy crap. And I had my portfolio to him in 20 seconds. Like, he must have thought I was nuts. I was like, check out my portfolio, I love you guys, exclamation points. And he wrote me back and he said, hey, cool stuff. And I realized that there's a lot of rainbows in there. Like, these guys aren't probably hip on rainbows. So I found his email, and I sent him an email, and I said, okay, look, I know there's a lot of rainbows and lens flares in there and stuff. So I said, but I love metal, man. I was like, just stick with me. I'll do you a test poster. How about that? And he wrote me back, which again blew my mind, like total fanboy. And he said, yeah, man, just send us a couple sketches and we'll talk. And I was like, cool. And I sent him the final finished, not even a sketch. Like I spent an entire day and I was just like, I'm gonna kill this for him. And he flipped out. He wrote me back and he was just like, this is crazy. And they actually ended up using it for their Australian tour promotion when they were down in Australia. They're on tour right now in Europe and they have screen prints of the poster they're selling. So all of a sudden, my personal passion, my personal projects that I love doing on my own time actually manifested a reality for me. I ended up emailing back and forth with a guitar player from one of my favorite metal bands. And that's cool, that's really cool. So the Signalnoise online architecture. What I wanted to talk about here is I get a lot of emails like through my broadcasts, Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, if you guys want to tune in. It's on the internet. But a lot of people ask me, like, how do I get my stuff out there, sort of thing. And I'm basically going to run through the basic bare bones online architecture of what I use to get my stuff out there. And I'm a WordPress guy, okay? And I love WordPress. I think it's awesome. Back in 1999, a CMS, content management system, cost 10 grand. And now WordPress is like giving it away. It's insane to me to see that progression. But I love WordPress, it's awesome. I set it up because it is gonna urge me to keep creating. In order for me to be worthy of the WordPress platform, I have to create things in order to update it. So, awesome. And another thing, when it comes to clients looking at your work, you don't want them sifting through a bunch of blog posts. So I maintain that a gallery is kind of an essential thing. Have a one-click gallery. I have a gallery button in the upper right-hand corner of the website. You click on it, you get the cargo gallery. It's awesome. It's just one shot. Everything's there. Thumbnail form, extra information, contact info. So potential clients can click that. Flickr, I love Flickr. It basically does the same thing as these other two things, only it's built-in network. It's awesome. You can comment on other people's stuff, add it to pools. Pools are sometimes streamed right onto the front page of places like Advisito and all these other blogs. And it's awesome. Really, really good. Behance, however you pronounce it. It's a great platform. I don't do a lot of communicating through this, but it is fantastic because a lot of creative directors and agency people surf Behance looking for freelancers to hire for whatever specific project that they have on the go. So it's a very good weapon when looking for that kind of stuff. Everybody's favorite, Twitter, man. Like I love Twitter. Twitter's great. At Signalnoise is my Twitter handle if you want to check it out. But it's awesome. It's great for keeping in touch with other people, keeping inspired too. Like it's great to know what people like Chuck Anderson's up to and Josh Davis and everybody. It's excellent. It's a great motivator. Now, I don't use Facebook a lot. I update it, but I know that it has worked out amazingly for a lot of people in terms of the communication that they can have directly with other people in the world. So I want to add Facebook there. In a nutshell, this is basically the online architecture of what Signalnoise is. This is how I get my work out there. So clients, I want to talk quickly about clients. These are some of the clients that I work with, and I wanted to show the screen. I'm not going to show like specifically any of these projects or whatever, but all of these projects, all the works that came to me from these people were directly related to personal projects that I did. Things that I did on my own time that they saw, that they thought were cool and wanted me to do it for them. Basically, that's how this here worked out. It's manifesting a reality, man. But I want to talk about one of my favorite projects that I worked on in the last couple of years. The Hobo with a Shotgun was actually written and directed and shot in my hometown of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. And it was actually the people that wrote it were friends of mine, Jason and Rob and John. And they came to me early on when they were just entering the Grindhouse trailer competition to develop a logo for the thing that they were doing. And this is the one I roughed up for them in like a half hour. It was super quick, and it stuck right through until the motion picture got released. So I developed that for the guys. You're Dead Productions, I developed this is their production company. This is the logo I developed for them. And Jason's feedback was basically make it look badass on a t-shirt, which is like the best thing you want to hear a client say. These guys are awesome. They were going to Sundance, and Jason called me up and he said, we need a simple card. Can you make us like a business card? And I was like, nope, it's not going to be simple. So I developed, this isn't a VHS, this is actually little business cards. And they look like VHS stuff because Hobo with Shotgun is influenced by VHS culture from the 1980s, the same kind of stuff that I'm into. So I developed them something that they can actually go down to Sundance and have a card that represented who they are as filmmakers. The Plague, if you guys saw the movie, I developed the logo for The Plague, probably the awesomest characters in the movie. And here's a shot of the movie that's slick, and it's in a video arcade, and one of my logos ended up on an arcade machine. That's cool, man, like early 80s arcade machines, I love that stuff, and I didn't even know that my logo was going to end up there. It's awesome. So they wanted me to do a poster for them. So they sent me a whole bunch of like stock photos and production photos that they had taken, and I started roughing stuff up for them very quickly. And this one here was kind of like that kind of 70s grindhouse kind of style, gritty, saturated color. Didn't really hit the mark. Here's one that I wanted to do kind of like a graffiti style thing where it was like graffiti in the background and blood splattered, making up the shape of the hobo. It wasn't that successful. This one I still love because it's like the hobo's like blowing away the person looking at the poster. I just love that idea. I think it's so silly. But none of these hit the mark, and that's obviously because I didn't see the movie at this point. So what Jason did is Jason sent me a whole bunch of inspiration for the movie, and he said basically the colors of the movie are inspired by all of this kind of stuff. And I went, Brave Star? Really? It's like he sent me a sticker cover from Brave Star. And after seeing the movie, once you guys see it, you'll understand. It's like the colors are super saturated. And this really set me free with the kind of direction that he was going. So I roughed up this in Photoshop pretty quickly. And I wanted to do kind of a Drew Struzan thing. And I realized early on that I wanted to do something painted. I wanted to do something painterly. So this is kind of what I roughed up, and they loved it. And they said, this is more hitting the mark, go. And but I love these two slides because you see Rutger Hauer's face in this one. It's like, I'm going to shoot you. And then in the next one, he's like, I'm going to shoot you. So this was another rough that I sent to him. It was kind of the finalized version. But you're going to see things shift around as I go through this process. So I knew early on I wanted to paint it. So I actually did a color study, just a really, really flat vector version of what I think the colors were, kind of the saturation, where I wanted the scope to land, really. So I roughed up this one here, and then I started actually blocking in the painting. Like I mentioned earlier, I took painting for a semester at an art school, so I actually knew how to block things in using that technique. So I started doing this here, and I actually sent this to Jason. And I was like, hey man, I started painting the poster. And I'm sure he looked at it and just went like, is this what our poster is going to look like? It's like, you're fired. So, and I kept building up here's a closer up version. I started building up the paints, adding highlights and shadows and blood and splatters and all kinds of stuff. Again, I had no idea how to do this stuff. I was making it up as I went. And this was all digital paint in Photoshop. But I wanted to do it. I wanted to do that Drew Struzan style kind of thing. So, wanted to keep doing it and progressed a little bit more. Now, at this point, it kind of got away from me. And for this poster, this version, I did the morning after test. You guys ever do that? You design something and you go to sleep and wake up the next morning and hate it? That's what I did with this. And it just wasn't hitting the mark. It wasn't right. And I was like, well, okay, I got to step back from this a little bit and then actually focus not on the content, but on the actual color palette because it was just getting away from me. So I eventually came up with this, which is something a little bit more interesting. I sent this over to Jason. He loved it. And so it ended up, the final poster ended up being this version of it. A lot more effects, a lot more splatters, a lot more everything. New characters are in there. The characters that I thought were the most interesting, I kind of put in there, added some effects and that kind of thing. And here's just a closer up version so you can see like the amount of detail and the amount of stuff that I was putting in there. I spent like, I don't know, 2 months on this poster or something like that. It's the biggest job that I ever tried to do. But I did it because I wanted to kind of nail that style that I've never tried before. I really, really wanted it to look like something that would inspire me, kind of thing. And from that, the kind of VHS covers from back in the 1980s and things. So I wanted to talk about this here quickly. Now, this here is a really, really recent thing that happened. The morning that I woke up and discovered the earthquake had happened in Japan, you know, my first instinct was I wanted to help in some way, but I can't. I'm on the other side of the world. How can I do that? Well, donation-based. But I didn't just want to donate $50 and be done with it. Like I wanted to see if I can generate money to donate. And what I did was I actually developed the Help Japan poster. And I did this quite quickly that morning. Uploaded it to the website, to my online store. And it went across the internet really, really quickly, and it was kind of like, it surprised me. I started getting emails from high school kids in Korea wanting to use it for their fundraiser to print on shirts, and there was an event in Paris, like a big concert series that was happening, and they wanted to use it for the flyer, and Salvation Army in Australia wanted to use it, and it was really, really interesting to see how quickly it spread across the internet and gave somebody, a lot of people were using it as their Facebook profile pictures and things, and that first weekend that I launched this, I sold out. Like I sold a pile of posters in that very first weekend. Now you got to understand, like I package all of my posters on my own. There's me and my buddy Jerko packing up posters in my basement. You know, like this is how I've been working for the past 3 years. I don't have a PR crew, a marketing crew, or a team of people or whatever. I just do things because just the way that I know how to do them, which is just by myself. So here's us just packing up the posters and stuff. That very first run of posters that went out. And while all this was happening, something really interesting happened. I was contacted by the people that developed QuakeBook online, and my image ended up being used on the cover of QuakeBook book, and they kind of had a, like, it went across the internet as being sold on Amazon, and they were doing a press release, and you could see it up there. I believe that was in Japan, I think. And there's my cover on stage with them, and that's a screenshot of Yoko Ono's website, Imagine Peace, and my artwork ended up there. And it was really interesting to see these people kind of get behind this image and use it for their own projects, their own initiations, their own things to generate funds. And this was sent to me by a reader on the blog, which I thought was really interesting. This was taken at a Korean grocery store here in Toronto. And my text was removed and replaced and translated. Now that was cool. That was really cool to me. Like, it transcended a culture. It wasn't just English now. It was like Korean, I would assume that is. And it was beautiful to see. You know, the image kind of, it took on a life of its own. 95% of the people that saw this poster don't even know where it came from. It developed this online kind of identity, just totally on its own. It was really interesting to see, and I just love this image because it's just a beautiful example of something being adapted to help people, to generate funds. And this all just encompasses around using your abilities to help and make a difference. You know, and I had a couple of examples of this in my talk previous, and but yeah, it's something I'm a huge advocate of. And to date, my poster, by selling a poster on the internet, has raised over $19,000 and donated to the Canadian Red Cross. So what advice would I offer to an aspiring designer? I'm going to finish up with this here. Like, I get a lot of emails and questions from people asking me to give them a little bit of advice on their situation, their stuff. So I wanted to kind of sum it up in basically just a small run of experiences, and that's the best way that I can do it. There's no one thing I can say to a designer to give them advice on, and that'll work for everybody, because everybody has their own education, their own upbringing, everything like that. So. And basically, like I said before, imagination is the most powerful thing that we have. We can create things in our head that don't exist, and I think that is truly something that we should all take into consideration. Your own style. Don't worry about your own style. Your own style is something that happens by accident. It's something that happens as a result of just following a path and experimenting and having fun, really. Putting pressure on yourself is crucial to keep yourself motivated, but don't let it kind of hinder you in doing your own projects. I think that doing your own projects is something that will initially lead to something that is truly you, that's something that has a lot of heart. Be kind and help others. You know, everybody has different ways of doing this, and online is like, we're all internet people, and I think the internet is a great example. If somebody sends you an email and asks you how to send you an email of like, how do I do this or whatever, hanging on to that secret isn't going to make you $1 million. You know, it's probably not going to make you feel too good either. It's just like, there's nothing to send them an email and say, oh, I just did it like this, and they go, oh, cool, thank you, and then they might help out somebody else, and you know, and so just help others out. Like, be cool, be kind. There's no tricks or shortcuts. I've gotten emails where people write to me and they say, like, can you teach me a couple of tricks to make me a better designer? It's like, no, like, I can't. Like, it's all just down to, like, learning your tools, learning your theory, like, learning those rules and then busting up those rules, then pursuing things that you want to do. That's the trick, you know? And sometimes it takes 10 years, 15 years, 20 years to do it. But it's all fun, man. If you keep enthusiastic about it, time doesn't even matter. Don't put limitations on yourself. James Cameron said this in his TED Talk, and it completely holds true in the design field. You know, the worst thing you could do is not do something because you think you're going to fail. Like, just do it. If you fail, so what? You probably learned something along the way. Everything that I did in my career, I can look back and say, well, this sucked, but I learned how to do blending modes. You know, like, I can kind of trace that back. So don't put limitations on yourself. You know, other people will do that for you. That's what James Cameron said. Don't only do what your instructor tells you to do. And what I mean by that is, when I was in school, we were learning how to do websites. They taught us how to do that. And it's basically like, make a table and put a link in it. That was the test. And it was very, very, very low quality. But I took that and I started developing my own websites. Anybody here remember Powerman 5000? New metal band from like the early 2000s? I developed a fan site for them back in school, like 1998 or whatever, based on what I learned in class. And by the end of it, I showed it to my teacher, and she didn't even know what to think of it. She's like, wow, you did this? And it was using Flash and stuff. And I taught myself how to do it, and I did it because I love doing it. So take the things that you learn in school and apply them to the things that you truly want to do on your own time. Because I truly think that helps everybody, and that'll manifest your reality of working on things that you may not have expected yourself to be working on, you know? You don't need clients in order to make things. And I maintain this. If you're not doing a client job, if you're not at the agency you work with, if you're at home, just make stuff. Everything, all the things that you do is going to help your skills. And so you don't need a client in order to make things. Like, if you want to design a sneaker for Nike, just do it. Just do it, upload it to your website, say you did this because you love Nike, you love the, you love the company, you really wanted to do it. And don't say it's official, but just do it. Everything is a skill, and expand your portfolio. But I'm too busy, James. And I say this too, man. Too busy to do it, life stuff, But seriously, man. And the reason I say it's bullshit is really simple, Like I said, I say that too. I'm too busy. When I'm not too busy, I'm just kind of lazy. But the reason I say that is because if you love to do something, you will always find time to do it. Always. If you love doing design, if you love creating comic books, you love doing kids books, animation, you will always find time to do it, hands down. So I want to leave you guys just with one more thing. I called my presentation Back to the Future. I didn't really talk about time travel or whatever in this whole thing. But this is how I kind of see it. When it comes to design, when we're going through school and stuff, we can learn all the rules, all the boundaries, everything that we can do to get from point A to point B, all the roads that we can take to do things the proper way and get it done on budget or whatever. But when it comes to personal creativity, when it comes to inspiration, things that we love, where we're going, we don't need roads. Thank you, guys.